Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to begin by conceptualizing this debate for you, right? To tell you what exactly has been the burden on both sides of the house, what have been the points of concession, and where essentially side government takes away this debate and side opposition stands to lose, right? So the first thing that I'd like to point out is that there has been a concession in what our idea of a religion more or less is, right? It is a spiritual way, it's a pathway to salvation, it's a sense of belonging, it's a sense of security. That has been religion on both sides of the house. The second thing about what this debate has been about was brought out by the leader of opposition and our PM, and I think that in both scenarios we stand to justify it better than side opposition, which is that the theme of this debate was basically harms versus benefit, okay? The harms of organized religion and the benefits of an unorganized or organized religion on both sides of the house, right? So while on our side of the house we very effectively characterize to you what we mean by organized religion and what are the harms and what are the relative benefits of unorganized religion, we believe that if you refer to your ad sheets, you will be able to see how side opposition has engaged on the harms of unorganized religion but haven't given us any substantial benefit of organized religion as such. Also the fact that the DLO speech was full of contradictions in themselves, using self-contradictory words, which we think was the place where we win this debate. The first thing, so the rebuttals, right? So the first thing I'd like to point out to you is that how the DLO characterizes in his speech that these organized religious structures are places where people go to voluntarily and then they, with the motive of serving other people, irrespective of which religious structure they belong to, right? So there's no distinction as such for them if they want to help people out. We come here and we ask you, please explain to us, then why in the first place is your religious structure necessary for you, right? So if you also propagate that the main motive of people belonging to these religious structures is to help people on humanitarian grounds, which is something that is there on our side of the house as well, then give me an exclusive benefit of what role your organized religion is playing in propagating this humanity, considering that in the status quo, humanity loses hands down to these structural organizations of religion because of the kind of rigid structures that are propagated by these organized religions, right? So please come and tell us what the exclusivity of that argument is. The second thing is you talked about is the collectivization of resources, and then also again in the later part of your speech you talk about how the hegemony that exists in a religious structure, or the power dynamic and the imbalanced power dynamic and the monopolization of a few people in the religion on our side of the house stands fails because there is no hegemony. Tell me how this happens. Because collectivization of resources, when you talk about that, obviously the resources are being collectivized. Who decides where to spend these resources? Who decides what is to be done? Who decides what is to be propagated? It is a group of people who have gained monopoly over the religious structure, right? And they will do anything and everything to propagate their self-interest. They will do anything and everything to interpret religion in the way that is going to serve their self-interests the best, and they are not bothered about which religious opinion is valued, should be propagated and should not be propagated, which is a very utopian idea in the first place. So side opposition comes and paints to us a world where people with every kind of opinion are given equal respect and equal standing, and especially in a standardized, rigid, organized religious structure, these people are given value for their opinions. This in itself is a very, very, very utopian idea, because that is not what happens in the real life scenario, right? The second thing that you talk about is social coherence and then the plethora of religious choices, right? You say that we voluntarily have the choice to choose whichever religion we want to, and second, that this organized religion promotes a sense of social coherence. Both these statements. Now tell me, in a society where organized religion already exists, in this society you cannot stand the relationship between a Hindu girl and a Muslim guy, or for that matter people from two different religions coming together and forming a relationship out of love and out of their need to be with each other. You cannot digest that companionship, you cannot digest that relationship. You use words like love jihad, you use mediums like honor killing to end this kind of like the dirtying of our religion. You tell me that in this kind of a scenario, in this kind of a status quo, in this kind of a society, we have a plethora of choices to voluntarily shift from one religious structure to the other. So like your argument stands like defeated there, okay? Then you talk about how there will be no expression and the structures will not want to be seen as oppressors. That is exactly what we are telling you. These structures have survived on a history of oppression. Now the fact that they do not want to be seen as oppressors rather than not being oppressive is the very fact that we are propagating on our side of the house, right? So I do not understand how that stands in your paradigm as well. Then you tell us that there are people, so these organized structures, they are going to propagate the right way or the correct way, and this is verbatim, right way or the correct way of living your life. This is where we question you on the subjectivity of what a person thinks is the right way or the correct way to live his life spiritually, which is the definition of religion that both sides of the house concede to, that both sides of the house concede to, right? So tell me, this is where the individuality of a person gets limited, and this is exactly what side government has a problem with. This is exactly where we think that the rigidity comes in. This is exactly where we think that the individual choices of a person is curbed to the degree that they cannot move out of the structure for the fear of social ostracization, for the fear of the psychological effect it's going to have on them through society, through the structure at large and everywhere else, right? Then you talked about how, so this has been their case. Then you talked about sati eradication. Now coming to that, let me tell you that sati eradication as an idea from Raja Ram Mohan Roy did not come from him because he was a part of the structural organized Hindu religion. It came to him because he inherently as a human being felt the need to curb this evil practice of burning widows alive. He saw their pain and he saw their plight because he felt it on humanitarian grounds, right? So that example rather stands on our side of the house. So I would request side opposition to now come and prove to us what exclusivity there is for their organized religion. Unengaged points have been vote bank politicization, accumulation of power, that is the hegemony that we talked about, and why they believe that individual autonomy is harmful. Thank you, very proud to propose.